Morning, guys. It's early here in Shanghai. It's 8 a.m. So up bright and early today. I'll just introduce myself to start off. My name is Skye. I'm an international teacher recruiter here in Shanghai with EF. And I have been with EF and in China for 3 years now. I started in Shenzhen. I taught there for a year, and now I've been in Shanghai for 2 years. I really, really love it. I'm originally from the US, and I'm from Maine, so I'm not sure where you guys are all from. If you guys want to put in the comments where you guys are located right now, that would be great. Now, let's see. Wyoming. Awesome. I've never gotten to visit there, but I'd like to. Very beautiful. Awesome. And Wales in the UK. I have visited Wales, actually. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. I was just introducing myself. My name's Skye. I'm from the US, and I've been in China for 3 years now. I'm originally from Maine. Today we're just going to be kind of chatting about traveling in China. It's one thing I'm super passionate about. I really love to do it. It's one of the reasons I've stayed in China for as long as I have. And I've gotten to do it quite a bit. Hi, Takeem. Thanks for joining. I know it's early for lots of people, especially for Wales. It's 1 a.m. there now. Yeah, awesome. So, like I said, I've been in China for 3 years now, so I've gotten to travel quite a bit. So I have a lot of experience traveling in different regions. Before the pandemic, I also traveled quite a bit internationally. So I visited like the Philippines and Japan, Cambodia as well. And then since the pandemic has happened, China's been back to normal for about over a year now. So it's been really great to get the opportunity to visit places in China that I probably wouldn't have before as well. Yes, hello, Mehdi, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining. Hello, Emily. So today I'll kind of just go through and answer like any questions you guys have, as well as kind of just give some general information on what it is like to travel here, because it's super different for anywhere I've traveled before. I've been into Europe, Latin America, and it's completely different. I'd say for myself, when I'm looking for places to visit in China, I always look to places like Instagram. If you actually go on our EF Work Abroad YouTube channel, there's loads of videos of where our teachers are located across China. And since they're local to those places, they usually have the best recommendations. Yeah, cool. David has some questions he'd like to ask. So go ahead. If you guys have questions, just put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them as I go. As well. And on Instagram, some other good accounts to follow, I would say, is Travel to China, like the number 2. They have some great inspiration on there, as well as just going on trip.com and TripAdvisor, you'll be able to find some really decent stuff as well. When I'm planning a trip here, I typically, I've done trips by myself with friends. I've done like tour groups as well. So it's pretty easy to do either. I've probably mostly traveled by myself though, just because I like to make my own plan and kind of go with what I want to do. Yeah, but there's kind of 2 main modes of transportation here in China. The most popular, I would say, is by train. I think everyone always pictures Japan as the high-speed train system, but actually China has, I think, the longest high-speed rail system like in the world. And so you can get places, I think from Shanghai to Beijing, it's about a 4-hour train ride. So if you consider like the time it takes to like check into your plane, get to the airport, it's pretty much the same amount of time, but it's usually like half the cost. So it's super easy to get around like that. Corey has asked, can I come work in China now? I used to work for EF 2 years ago. I want to go back to Guangzhou. Oh, hi, Corey. Yeah, so you can come work in China now. You'll have to just apply on our website or reach out to your former recruiter. I will say the process is going to take some time to get here. But we do have we had some teachers arrive from the UK just this past week. I think there was 12 of them. And so that's been super exciting as kind of travel restrictions get a little bit easier, but it does take a bit of time. Mark is wondering, are there any travel places in China that aren't English friendly? This is a really good question. The smaller city you go to, the less English will be spoken. So for Shanghai, you could definitely go to a lot of different restaurants in like tourist spots, and they might speak a little bit of English, or the signs will be in English, which makes it obviously easier. I traveled to Zhangjiajie, which is like the Avatar Mountains. So it's based off the movie Avatar is based off of these mountains because they look like they're floating. And it's a very small city, and by small is like 1 million people. So for China, that's quite small. And there's definitely a lot less people that speak English there. But I would say it's still easy enough to navigate around just because there are a lot of Chinese apps that can help you like buy your tickets. People usually at hotels will be able to help you. But if it is something that you're worried about, there's a lot of different travel organizations. I have used Wanna Travel. So they'll plan like the whole trip for you. All you have to do is book your flight. And they have a tour guide that will take you from place to place, which is really great because you don't have to worry about like the mafang, which is like Chinese for kind of like the annoying admin and like the annoying work you have to do to get something done. So they'll take care of like buying your tickets, waiting in lines, and so you get to do I think a lot more with your time. So that's one thing that'll help me. David wants to return to China as well. Yeah, David, you should definitely go on our website and apply, submit an application, and then one of our recruiters like myself can reach out to you and chat with you more about that because everyone's situation is kind of different. How is traveling solo, Ben? I'm also a solo traveler. Do you mostly make your own itineraries or do you book tours? So I've done one tour while I've been in China, and that was the trip to Zhangjiajie. But then I've also done a lot of trips by myself. I would say that for myself, I typically will stay like in a hostel if I'm traveling alone, just because it is a good way to meet people. I did that in Yangshuo, in Guilin, and I got to do like a traditional meal with the other people that were staying there, and then we were able to all hang out together. China, safety-wise, has always felt probably the safest place I've gotten to travel by myself. And like I said, I traveled in Europe alone. But China, everyone is so friendly and willing to help, and they're usually just super excited that you want to explore their culture. So they'll probably might invite you in for tea or something like that. And so I've found it quite nice by myself. Daniel, I'm very happy to hear there are new arrivals into China. I'm waiting for my PU letter to be approved, and I'll start my EF journey. I'll be in Xi'an. Have you ever traveled there before? I actually have not been to Xi'an yet. I really like to visit because obviously that's where the terracotta warriors are. Hopefully in the next year I can add that. I also want to visit like Chengdu and Chongqing as well. Yes, the PU letter is one of those like documents that you need in order to make the move over here. Something your kind of recruiter can help you with as well. From JJ, how easy is it to plan a trip in China if you don't know the language? I'd say it's not that difficult. There's so many blogs out there, whether people like on YouTube, on Instagram. And the best part is you'll meet people here as well that have done it before. So in your EF school, there's usually 4 or 5 other international teachers and then local teachers as well. So I used to just ask them for their recommendations. And then they would tell me, oh, you should go here and do this. And then they help have the WeChat contact, which is kind of like the WhatsApp or someone's cell phone number. And then they would be able to help me like go to the Great Wall. Like someone sent me a WeChat contact of someone that could take me there super inexpensively. I think it was maybe 150 RMB for the bus ride there and the tickets and to come back, which is the equivalent of like $20. And mind you, that was like our whole day that we spent doing that. And then Charlotte, hi Skye, thanks for sharing. Is COVID bad right now in China? Super good question. So right now, COVID is not really bad at all. It's been pretty much back to normal since last summer. So if you're walking around the cities, you will see people wearing masks, but it's not like a requirement for when you're going into like restaurants or anything like that. But when you go on public transportation, you are required to wear masks, as well as in like maybe big malls. There's really good systems for them to track things here. You'll have a health code that is green if you have not like been in contact with anyone with the virus or you haven't come from anywhere that's a high risk area. And so if you have that green health code, then you can pretty much go anywhere in the city. You can also travel easily right now. I've actually, I would say the whole time COVID's been happening, I haven't even needed to get tested once just because things are so much back to normal, which has been super exciting. Yeah. Amber's Craft Place. I'm working on going to Kunshan. Oh, fantastic. You just got your passport and started your visa work. I'm super excited. Have you been to Kunshan? I actually have not gotten to go to Kunshan, but it's super close to Shanghai. I think it's about a 20-minute train ride. So I'm really jealous of people that get to live there actually because they're so close to Shanghai. But it's probably half the cost of living in Shanghai, so you're going to save loads of money. When I was in Shenzhen, saving money was kind of my goal because I wanted to use it to then travel on the weekends. So you can definitely do a lot of traveling. Being in the Shanghai area as well, there's so many cities nearby that you can visit, like Suzhou, Nanjing, Wuxi, Hangzhou. You can go to Westlake. So things are just a quick train ride away. Do you know how it is in Wuhan at the moment? Just got offered a position with EF Wuhan last week. Congratulations, that's super exciting. Just like everywhere else in China, Wuhan is actually back to normal as well. Like they're having concerts and big pool parties. So yeah, that's fantastic. I'm excited for you. I remember Wuhan was someplace that I think it would be like the next place I would want to live. It's known for like the live music scene, and it actually has the biggest train station in China. So it's kind of like a central hub for like being able to get around because it's very centrally located in China. Mark, what kind of visa do you get to be an English teacher, and does it allow you to do remote part-time work at the same time? Good question, Mark. So with EF, we sponsor all our teachers for a D visa. So it's a work visa. Since it's sponsored by EF, when you come to live in China, that means you can only work for EF because that would be the only place you're legally like sponsored for. And so you wouldn't be able to do any part-time remote work, especially since you'd be so busy. Like not only would you have a full-time job, but you probably wouldn't want to spend your extra free time like working as well. Since you are living abroad, you'd want to have that full experience. So the remote part-time work wouldn't be possible, but we do get you that legal Z visa. Shar, have you heard anything about the mandatory government quarantine? Is that still going on? If so, can you tell us more if you know any more? Awesome, yes. So I haven't done it myself, but there is a mandatory quarantine in China. Right now, the policy, I believe, is 14+7. So you'll spend 14 days in a mandatory government quarantine, which basically means you can't leave the hotel room and they'll bring your meals to you. And then throughout those 2 weeks, you'd get tested as well. And then afterwards, you'll spend 7 days in a different hotel, but the restrictions are a bit more relaxed, so it's not as strict. But it's not too bad, I think. When you're with the EF and you do the quarantine, we'll provide kind of different engagement activities. You'll be able to meet some of your future coworkers as well and have like little coffee chats. And then we have some online fitness classes also. And while it does seem like a long time, I think it's why China is still been able to stay at a level of normalcy for how long they have. So it just, you can know that at the end of it, you get to go back to a normal life. JJ asked, are there any great day trips that you can take on your days off? Yes, definitely. There's so many things nearby in the different cities that EF is located in. In Shenzhen, you can visit Guangzhou during the day, and there's also a beach that's not too far as well. Me and my friends and my coworkers, we went to Hangzhou for a day trip about, I guess, a month ago. So we all just like woke up early, took the train. It was about 30 minutes. It cost maybe the equivalent of like $7 and then we went to like Westlake, got dinner, came back around like 5 p.m. So it was a really nice way to go and do something different, spend time with your friends, and do something very traditional, because Shanghai tends to be that more modern city, I guess. I was offered a position in Chengdu. Do you know how the vaccination efforts are? Yeah, it's actually, I'm not sure about the specific procedure in Chengdu since I am in Shanghai, but I've gotten both doses of the vaccine myself, which has been super exciting. It was really easy. We just registered online. Got an appointment, and I think I went the next week. And then after 2 weeks, I was then able to register for the next one. When you go here in Shanghai, like, people speak English. They're super friendly. They had balloons up. Everyone was so excited. And then I got my vaccination card at the end of that. Have you, since working for EF, when you travel, is it mainly with work friends? I'm a little nervous. I'll be lonely and not make friends. There again, I'm quite talkative. Is it possible? Oh, that's a different one. Yeah, that's, I think, a totally normal feeling when you're moving abroad. I think I remember asking like my friends and family, like, what if I don't make any friends? What will I do? I'm super nervous. But when you arrive with EF, you'll actually come at the same time as other new EF teachers. So those tend to like be some of your closest friends throughout that time. I remember I had a friend named Erica from my onboarding, and we did a lot of trips together. And then when you join your school, there's about 4 to 5, like I said, other international teachers and local staff as well. So I've done trips with them. I would say, I think most people from EF will say this, I'd say 90% of my friends in China are through EF or through people in EF introducing me to them. So it's a super big network. In Shenzhen, we had over 20 schools, same in our other large cities across. So well, you'll definitely be able to meet loads of people, but it is, I can understand it might be a bit nerve-wracking. Is it possible for foreigners to use an e-ticket for the train? Or would we always need to pick up a ticket ahead of time? Yes, I actually went through this experience last month when I went to pick up my ticket. I thought I had to go and get a physical ticket. And I actually just had to scan my passport to get on the train. So it was super easy because I remember having to wait for tickets when I first arrived in China before the e-ticket. And you would have to wait a long time, and it was a bit confusing. So now you can just scan your passport, and it's you can buy the ticket on WeChat. You can literally do everything through WeChat as well. Yeah. Jorge, hello Jorge. How is traveling inside China? Yeah, I really enjoy it. There's, I think, something for everyone. So for myself, I usually would like to plan like some sort of beach trip, maybe to like Thailand or Vietnam in my first year in China, but that's not really possible right now. So everyone's been going to Sanya. It's considered like the Hawaii of China, basically. So it's like beautiful beaches and resorts. But then if you're on the more adventurous side, I went to like at the Avatar Mountains. I got to do hiking. I went with my friend and he went ziplining. So there's lots of adventurous stuff as well. Is it easy to send money home to the States from China if needed? Yeah, great question. The States, I think, is easier than other countries. I use Swapsy. It's basically, they'll pair you with maybe a Chinese national that's based in the US, and you'll basically switch currencies with each other. So they'll send like US currency to your account, and you'll send some of your money to their Chinese account. And so it's quite easy to do. It takes maybe 3 or 4 days to all process. But the processing fees are super low compared to other places. But other countries, it might be a bit more difficult. Yes. Since you've lived in China, what other countries have you traveled to? How easy is it to get from China to other surrounding countries? Good question. So my first trip, when I arrived, I went to Cambodia for 4 days. I think it was like an hour plane ride, so it was super easy. It cost less than 1,000 RMB, so it was like maybe $100 for that plane ticket. And then I stayed in hostels the whole time I was there, so it was maybe like the equivalent of $4 or $5 each night. And then you can also get buses and trains and tuk-tuks around, so it's super easy. I also went to the Philippines, and when I was there, I visited like 5 different places. So I went for about a 2-week trip, actually. And then in the summer, my first year, I went to Japan for about 10 days. I have a friend that was living there, and so I got to go and visit her But Tokyo and Kyoto is awesome. And so it's fairly easy to get around. Some places are more expensive than others. So Japan was probably the more expensive place I went. And the Philippines and Cambodia were really inexpensive. And for me, I really love the beach, so it was super fun. Yeah. Have you considered getting a Chinese green card once you have stayed there the necessary number of years? I'm not sure the amount of years, but I think it's like 20 or something. I've only been here for 3 years, so I haven't quite thought about it yet. But the visa team with the F is super nice and really helpful. I've probably had like 4 or 5 visas now since I had to move cities, and they make it super clear what you need to do. They'll go with you to the police station if need be. It's all paid for by EF and Skye here, so it's really not too bad to have to deal with that. Tammy will be joining the EF team soon. Have you been to or know about Jinhuangdao in Hebei province, and in general, how are the living conditions in apartments for most EF teachers in China? I actually have not been there. I don't even know if I've heard of Jinhuangdao. Yeah, with the smaller cities, I'm not entirely sure what the apartments are like, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer. But I think I said this to someone earlier, is that you will be able to save so much money probably because the cost of living will be so cheap. So that's one thing you can look forward to. I'd say if you're joining soon, I definitely get in touch with the school directly to see if you can maybe have like the WeChat of one of the teachers there, and I can give you a more firsthand experience. But yeah, what is normal rent for a studio or 1 bedroom in Shanghai? Thank you. Yes, so it depends. So in Shanghai, obviously, where you're located, it's going to be a different price. So if you're located in downtown, it's probably going to be around 6,000 RMB for a studio apartment. I think that's probably the more realistic price. You might be able to find one for around 5,000, but it might be difficult. If you're a bit outside the city, in one of the districts like Minhan or like out in Pudong, you can probably find one for about 4,000 RMB, which would be a really good deal. It would probably be in more of a budget for a teacher when they first arrive. I live in central Jing'an, about a 10-minute bike ride from EF headquarters. And I live with 2 other roommates, both also work with EF, and I pay about 4,000 RMB. So I usually suggest people live with roommates because you can get a bigger apartment and live more centrally while also not spending too much money. Yeah. How much Mandarin have you learned in my time in China? Good question. And the answer is not much. So I know like the numbers, and I can order food and tell a taxi like where to stop, but that's about it. We do offer Chinese classes for our teachers when they arrive here in China. And so you can take them before you get here. So I would definitely recommend that for you. And then let's see. Can you tell us a little bit about vacations while working for EF? Has your experience been able to book/plan vacations? That's a really good question. So when you first join with the EF in your first year, you'll have 10 days of annual leave, and then you'll get all the public holidays off. So that's about 11. So for myself, I planned them around the public holidays. So I would take annual leave maybe 1 or 2 days before, 1 or 2 days after, to kind of extend it. So like I said, I was able to go on I think it was 4 or 5 day trip to Cambodia. I went to Beijing for 4 days. I went to Shanghai for a weekend. I went to the Philippines for almost 2 weeks over Chinese New Year. And then I went to Japan for 10 days as well. Oh, and I also went to Guilin and Yangshuo for 5 days. So that all happened in my first year. So it is possible to take quite a few trips, but you kind of have to maybe plan them ahead of time so that you can make the most of your annual leave. And then in your second year, you get 12 days. So it keeps going up after that. In order to plan it, you just have to talk to the director of studies at your school to get like approval, I think at least a month ahead of time. Just because obviously they can't have all of the teachers off on the same days, or else there's nobody to teach the classes. And yeah. If you get accepted, generally, how long is the process from applying to starting work? Great question. Hard answer. It really depends on where you're located. The visa situation is different in each country that we work with, just due to the COVID situations in each place as well. I would say generally it's probably going to take about 5 months at least, to the point of like applying, getting accepted, collecting the documents, all of that. So just something to keep in mind, but I would recommend just apply on our website, and then you can talk to one of the recruiters about that specific timeline. Any interesting foods you've tried while traveling? Yes, definitely. I remember I went to Inner Mongolia actually, and that was through EF. And they're really known for like the meat there. So I think in like the 4-day trip we went on, I had like so much meat at either at hot pot or, and they had this delicious like salty milk tea, like not milk tea, but it was basically like milk with like a little bit of tea in it, that was warm, and it was probably the most delicious drink I've ever had. So if you guys go to Inner Mongolia, you have to get that. I think it's quite traditional. And then as well, they have many like ceremonies when you start like a big hot pot. So there is like a fake or a real lamb that was like cooked, and then they brought out, and then we just looked at it, and then it went back away, and then they brought us the actual food we're eating, and they had us like all dressed up as well. So that was super fun. I've also, let's see, that was probably the most interesting. I think my favorite meal in China, though, was when I went to Beijing and I got to have Peking duck, which is something I think most of you will have heard of before. So delicious. I think we had walked maybe 30,000 steps that day to get to this Peking duck. And it was like the most crispy skin, and they cut it right in front of you. It was honestly delicious. I don't think I've ever been so happy after a meal before. Let's see. Is it safe to travel in China? Yes. I mean, speaking as like a female traveling by myself, it's probably the safest I have felt. There's definitely precautions you can take along the way if it is something you're nervous about. Like you can book to stay maybe in a private car on the train if you'd like to, or get your own hotel room. But I've always felt super safe with all of the locals here, and they're really helpful. Even if they can't communicate with you, they'll try and help you if you get lost or anything like that. If you need to like charge your phone and you can't find one, they'll help you. So I've always felt super safe, even at night by myself. So that's one thing I think me and my friends have talked about, is how it's so different from back in the US. Yeah, and then you guys sent in some questions over the weekend as well, so I'll try and go through those so I can get through that. Any travel agency / app you can recommend? Yes, so typically if I'm booking like transportation, I'll either use trip.com or book it directly through WeChat. WeChat is how you'll pay for most things in China, and trip.com allows you to pay with either WeChat or through your Chinese bank account. Well, some travel sites that you might use at home, like Google Flights, things like that, it won't be as easy because you obviously want to use your Chinese bank account. So I usually recommend trip.com for booking flights. And then booking.com, you can pay with WeChat or your Chinese bank account as well. So those are the best for being able to pay and not have to like use your at-home bank accounts. I definitely recommend those. Do the schools and areas / districts you're based ever meet up and take part in group activities? Yes, definitely. My school, we used to go get like Korean barbecue like every other Sunday, as well as we would go to like the beach together. We did a escape room, which was really hard since the clues were in Chinese, but our local colleagues tried to help us as well. Me and my colleagues, like I said, we went to Hangzhou together last week. And then I also went to Guangzhou with my coworkers for a day trip once. We visited the house that Bruce Lee like grew up in and learned his craft, which was super cool. Yeah. So for some of the questions that you guys asked over the weekend, Is it easy to find somewhere to camp around China? So this was an interesting question, because I think camping is a more like Western concept. They don't camp as much here, but it's definitely still possible. I know there's like specific organizations that will help organize it for you. And so my friend, she went camping on the Great Wall, like the tent was actually on the Great Wall, and then they woke up to watch the sunset or the sunrise in the morning. So you can definitely do that. I had a friend who bought his own tent, and he would just like climb up a mountain every weekend, sleep at the top of the mountain, and then climb down by himself. So if you're super adventurous, you can do that as well. And Taobao is like this online shopping app similar to Amazon, but I think it has better deals. So you can definitely order like all of the supplies you would need there. Yes. Do you need to have some basic Mandarin to move around China? I think it definitely helps. It will make things more stress-free. But if you don't, it doesn't mean you can't travel around. I've done it plenty. I don't know much Mandarin at all. You'll find that there's lots of apps that can help you out. On WeChat, you can take a picture of like a menu and it will translate it for you. As well as there's obviously apps where you talk into it and then it will talk Chinese out. So if there is a moment where you need to communicate with someone, there are some workaways around it. But I will say you might run into moments where you don't know exactly what's going on. And it's kind of something you just get used to, but it's part of the adventure as well. Is there ever any opportunities to visit the other EF centers in China? I'll be in Chengdu, but I love to go around and visit with everyone in other centers as well. You can try and have like maybe some of the management connect you to people at other schools, or see if like people from your center know of other EF teachers in different cities, I guess. Yeah, so that's how you'd have to kind of figure it out, but I think it is possible as well, especially because Chengdu is near like Chongqing. You can also just like go like find an EF center and walk in and see if anyone is there, and tell them you work for EF, and they should be able to introduce you if you'd like. No worries, you're late. We'll still be here for like 30 more minutes, so no worries. Is it required to get an IELTS to teach in China? So I believe IELTS is for people that are like non-native English speakers to go to school abroad, I believe. So to come teach in China, you'll have to get a TOEFL certificate, which stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. So it's required for the visa, as well as it will give you kind of a basic understanding of different teaching methods that you'll use here in China. It is something that EF will sponsor you for. So for that, I'll be able to, your recruiter would like enroll you in the class, and EF will pay for it as well. So you will have to get that, but we'll help you do it. Yeah. So someone asked how I would describe the public transit, which is a really good question. I find that it's super clean, super cheap, and super easy to use. The metro is probably the fastest way to get around. When I was in Shenzhen, for some reason, I really loved the buses because then I could like watch out the window and see different parts of the city, and I would read a book usually. A bus or metro ride will typically cost about 2 to 4 RMB, which is the equivalent of like 25 cents to 50 cents. So it's really cheap. And then you typically just have to walk maybe like 5-10 minutes to get where you are from the metro station, and they're all throughout China. There's also the option of rideshare bikes. So you can just scan a QR code with your phone, and then it will let you take the bike for as long as you want. And again, like 2-3 RMB. In some cities I've actually traveled to, and they have like e-bikes that you can rent. So similar to like you scan it, but it's an electric one, so you don't have to actually do anything. And it has like a little helmet attached. So that's really fun. I think those are mostly in the smaller cities though, so you'll have to check it out. Yes. Do you have any tips for budget travel in China? So budget travel in China is definitely possible. Going to like the smaller cities will help with this. Just because when you go to like Beijing, Shanghai definitely won't be a budget place to travel, just because there's so many different options here. So it's sometimes hard to resist going to get like really good Mexican food, even though you're in China, because maybe you haven't had it in a while. So you'll spend a bit more money. If you go somewhere and like really appreciate the local culture, eat noodles and street dumplings, things like that, it will be quite inexpensive. Traveling by train will save you quite a bit of money as well. So I definitely recommend that. It might take a bit longer than flying, but it will save you a couple hundred RMB throughout the trip. So you can use that to maybe do a different activity or one more activity. Hotel-wise, hostels super inexpensive and pretty safe as well. I stayed in a hostel in Yangshuo it was 27 RMB per night. So I spent like 100 RMB for three nights, which is equivalent of 14 US dollars. So it's extremely cheap. And so then I used that money and I rented a scooter every day and I got to scooter around. So really good idea for that to save money is stay in a hostel. And can we talk a little bit about which hotels foreigners are allowed to book and how we figure out which ones we can book and which ones we can't? Yeah, this is a good question. This is another reason I recommend using booking.com. You can actually message the property before the trip. So I usually will message to make sure they don't have any restrictions, because sometimes they might be worried that you've just entered China. Maybe you have just gotten out of quarantine, so they might have policies with that. So it's just something you might want to inquire about ahead of time. And so I definitely recommend that. You won't be able to really tell, but in the bigger cities, I haven't run into an issue myself of not like being able to stay in a hotel. So what are some of the great places you've been able to visit on your day off? Yeah, good question. I was in Shenzhen my first year, and there's a really beautiful like park with a botanical garden. So that was probably one of the better things I got to do on my day off, as well as go to like the beach. But another thing is that it actually gets quite hot here in China during the summertime, but there are a lot of pools around. So usually I would go to the pool with my coworkers and relax. In terms of day trips, I think West Lake in Hangzhou is really beautiful, and we got to take like a boat ride around the lake, and it was really inexpensive as well. I think it was like 50 RMB each for almost hour-long boat ride. So it was like $7. And this is where like one guy was like rowing us around. Yeah, so that was super fun. Yes, and then let's see. Can you easily visit neighboring countries like Korea, Japan, and Russia? Good question. Typically, yes, you can get around to them, no problem. Right now, not really. Just because of the policies in those countries. Like I don't think Japan's allowing foreigners in at the moment. And then the process coming back, you would have to quarantine. So that's kind of why right now the people that have been living here have been traveling in China. So you've been able to visit places you maybe wouldn't have thought to go before. But honestly, I've been to places that have been super cool. Like I went to Sanya and the beaches were so nice. And they had really delicious like coconut chicken. And then I also went to, like I said, the Avatar Mountains quite recently. I'm hoping I can go to, I know some of my friends are going to a festival in Qingdao, which is in the north of China, where they have like super fresh seafood. You can basically buy the fish live and then bring it to the restaurant, and then they'll cook it for you at the restaurant. So it's like as fresh as seafood can get, I think. It's the fact that it's like BYOF, bring your own fish. Yeah. So I would definitely recommend just sticking to traveling in China. Any tips for hiking lovers going to China? Yeah, definitely. There's loads of hiking around. Since you'll be located in a city, since all EF schools are in at least a city where it's like, a couple million people, you'll probably have to travel a little outside of the city to get there. But I know like in Shenzhen, you could get there by the metro. Maybe it just might be the end of the metro line. Shanghai, the same as well. So it'll just be a little bit more work, I think, to get out there, but there are definitely options. And then there's loads of mountain ranges, so you can take those long trips on your holidays to go maybe hiking for 4 or 5 days. The Yellow Mountains are super beautiful, Rainbow Mountains. And then I know some people do like a trek through the desert. So that's an option as well. So lots of different places you can go hiking. I did a 20-kilometer trek through like a water forest a few weeks ago. So that was right outside of Shanghai. It was quite flat. So I don't know if it was really hiking, but it was super fun. I read something about being paid in the local currency. How will that work with my US bills? Good question. That's something you definitely want to plan and do some research about. So you get paid into a Chinese bank account through AF, which is super convenient because obviously you'll have like to pay your rent, pay for food, and everything here is you'll use WeChat to pay for it. So it'll be through that bank account. If you're in the US, there are ways to send money back. It'll just be like a small processing fee, and then you'll have to just budget yourself for however how much money you'll be sending back. I usually recommend people like don't have too many things that you have to pay at home though, because like for myself, I was planning to come into China for 1 year. I've been here 3 years now, so I kept my phone like bill going my first year, and then I had to cancel after 1 year, and I had wasted so much money, and I should have just canceled it when I first came. So I would say just cancel it. Try and get rid of as many bills as you can. And then have I ever used a travel agency? Yes, I have. I used Wanna Travel. It was super nice to not have to worry about like transportation, like a van taking us around. So that was super good. I would recommend it for someone that maybe it's their first time traveling abroad alone. I've had experience traveling before in Europe and then in Asia as well. But if it's something you're nervous about, you can go on those trips, as well as you won't be the only one. So when I went, I think there was 10 of us, and most from Shanghai and others from some of those smaller cities near Shanghai. And so then you'll be able to make some new friends. So I now have all of them on like Instagram and WeChat. Did you have to reapply for the work visa each year? Yes. So my visa is just a 1-year work visa, so I reapply for it every year, but it's super simple. I just basically hand in my passport, and the visa officer does it, and then I get it back. So it's really, really not too bad. Hello, Ellie. Welcome, Ellie. Ellie has lived in China for a very long time, actually. I know her, but she'll be heading back to the UK soon, which is very sad. Let's see. Who can I travel with? There's, like I said, you can meet people through like a tour group, but most people will travel with people they've met through EF, which is a great way to also bond with your coworkers, I think, because you'll spend quite a bit of time with them. I loved getting to know like all of the local teachers, and oftentimes they will invite you maybe home to like their hometown for the holidays, which is really great because you get to see like the actual local traditions instead of maybe like the more touristy ones. And they can take you to like the best food and order like the best stuff on the menu. So make sure you're getting to know all of your colleagues, and they can take you around to some of like the more hidden gems, I would say. Let's see. Will I have time to travel as a teacher? Yes, definitely. You just want to plan how to use your annual leave as well as your the public holidays. So you'll have 10 days annual leave and then 11 days of the Chinese public holidays. And so you can just organize those to go on trips with each other. How has COVID changed my travel plans? Are there travel restrictions? So some cities you might have to get tested for COVID before you go, but you would most likely know that beforehand. But I think there's only like 1 or 2 places right now that it's like that. And so it's really not too bad. As well as you'll just need to show that green QR code that you'll have everywhere you go. So if you go on like the metro in that city that you're traveling to, if you go on the plane, as well as like when you're on those modes of transportation, you have to wear a mask, and they might check your temperature, things like that. So it's really not too bad because you can still do it. And then when you're like walking around, you don't have to wear a mask. It's not required just because things have been back to normal here for so long. The only way it's really affected things though is that you can't really travel internationally. So that's the biggest thing. what's it like to travel during national holidays in China? This is a really good question. So it does get quite busy during national holidays because, like, think about it, there's over 1 billion people that are off on the same day. And so one thing I always recommend is to avoid like the super touristy places. So definitely wouldn't say go to like the Forbidden City or the Great Wall on like Chinese National Day because it will be super crowded. But you can go to maybe some of the like really cool places, but not quite as popular. Or sometimes I might do like a staycation in Shanghai because the city tends to empty out during like Chinese New Year, Dragon Boat Festival. And so you can kind of explore the city with less people in it. So it depends on if you are okay with crowds, I think. So something to definitely think about before making the move. What were some of my concerns, or was I apprehensive before traveling in China? I think my biggest concern was that I don't speak Chinese. So obviously you can sometimes be somewhere and not know what's going on. Someone might be trying to tell you something and you don't know what they're saying. So you can be concerned if you're doing something wrong or not. So that was the thing I was most nervous about when I first started traveling in China. But I think now I've just gotten used to like not knowing what's going on. And then I kind of just like use hand motions or just guess, and it tends to work out. I've never been in a situation where it doesn't. So that was my biggest thing. But like I said, you can take our Chinese classes. Our teacher Adonia is super helpful, so you can take those and maybe pick up some more phrases for situations that you might be more concerned about. So you need to bring a voltage adapter to China. So obviously it depends on where you're coming from, but yeah, you will need an adapter for things like a laptop charger, like anything that's 3 prongs, you'll need an adapter. I remember EF gave me one though when I arrived, so that was super helpful, especially since you'll be going into quarantine, and you'll probably want to be able to watch videos and keep yourself entertained. I would definitely recommend bringing that adapter with you. Let's see. Are there any other questions that people have? It's about 8:50 now, so we have about 10 minutes left before we'll wrap up. So I guess, is there anything else you guys are kind of wondering about for traveling in China? I guess I can give some recommendations of places I'm hoping to visit in the next year. I've been wanting to go to for a super long time. One is Harbin. It's in like the very north of China. It's basically right next to Russia. So it has all of this like very Russian architecture. And then in the wintertime, it's famous for its ice festival. So it has like loads of ice castles. You can go skiing, ice skating. And so since I'm from Maine, where it's a very long winter, in Shanghai, it gets a bit cold, but it's not too bad. I really want to go and like see some real snow and see the ice castles because they look absolutely beautiful. So I would definitely recommend looking that up. It's Harbin, Harbin. So check that out. Another place I really am dying to go to is Chongqing. It's like central China. It's right next to Sichuan province, so it's known for like spicy food, hot pot, and it's also like built into the mountains, so it's like kind of sci-fi when you look around. And then everyone that goes there, they're like, yeah, I'm excited to go. And then when they come back, they're like, oh, I love Chongqing. It's the best city ever. They get to eat like loads of delicious food. So I'm hoping to go there this year. And then the last place I really want to go to is Yunnan province. So it's the very western province of China. It's right next to Southeast Asia. So you can eat like really delicious fresh food with loads of garlic and ginger. And it's the most diverse province as well. So they have over hundreds of local minority groups living there. So you can see some of their local traditions as well. It's also like quite tropical. So I'm hoping I can go there for maybe like 2 weeks in the fall time. Daniel's wondering if you can recommend any social media groups online for teachers who are about to leave their home country to chat with prior to arriving. Yes, definitely. If you're coming over with EF, we have a Facebook group for our teachers that are set to arrive. So I would recommend reaching out to your recruiter and they can connect you with them. It's also when you're about to get here, if there's other people coming at the same time, there will usually be a WeChat group for you guys to connect with as well, because you'll be doing training together. Yeah. Is it okay to bring bicycles on the train? So I don't think you can like roll a bicycle just onto the train directly. I had a friend who brought one from Hangzhou to Shanghai, and she, I think, had to take it apart, and she had a bike bag, so she did it that way. So the trains, it can be a bit more tricky, but there's also like bikes in every city that you can scan. So if you just need it for like the day of biking around the city, I would recommend just using the public bikes because they're quite nice. I think they replace them like every couple of months. And they're cheap to use. I think if you used it for the entire day, it would cost like 16 RMB maybe. You can also get like a monthly subscription for like 30 Kwai and then use it however much you want. Yeah, I mean, we'll start wrapping up here soon. So are there any other questions that you guys have for me, mostly about traveling, or any other random questions that are in your head as well? Mm-hmm. Yeah, if not, we can kind of wrap things up. But it was really lovely I know I've just been kind of talking to myself, but traveling is one of my passions and the reason I've stayed in China for so long. Despite what my family, I think, would hope me to do, they would love for me to come home. But there's so many more places that I want to go before I leave. And it's just a really nice lifestyle here. This has been really insightful. I found myself, oh, good, I'm glad. If a friend wants to visit, can they get a temporary travel visa? They're not issuing tourist visas at the moment. Typically, though, yes, they could get a tourist visa and come and visit. I had friends where their parents or family and friends would come. But right now, it's not possible just due to COVID restrictions. Yeah, but hopefully, I would say in maybe a year, it might go back to normal, but it's hard to say. Yeah. But you could just have your friend come to move to China with you. It's easy solution. And so they can also apply through EF. We have loads of friends or couples that will come to China together and both work at EF. Thank you so much, Skye. Yeah, you're welcome, guys. I'm excited for all of you to come and join. It was really nice getting to chat with you today. Check out our website and our YouTube channel, and you can apply through there. And then there's more videos on the YouTube channel about traveling, different cities. And then we have a new video. It's a day in the life of a teacher. So you can kind of see what, your life would actually be like when you move to China. So check those out. Yeah. But have a great night for those of you in the US and a great super early morning for those of you in the UK. Yeah. But talk to you guys later. Yeah, you can technically bring a dog, but it's super difficult and very expensive. So I definitely recommend doing some research on that beforehand. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.